talking about some potential free agent candidates remaining for the Vikings in this third or fourth wave of free agency. And I want to start with the offensive line. I feel good for the most part about the starting unit of the offensive line for the Vikings heading into next season. But depth, I feel like we should pay equal attention to that as well. So we have Rashad Hill as a backup swing tackle. That's pretty solid. Oli Udoh, he's intriguing. I feel like we need one more guy, and I'm looking at center. And I feel like the Vikings are definitely going to bring back Brett Jones, but they don't take him seriously. We've had guys he can play center or guard. We've had guys, Dakota Dozier, Drew Samia, Pat Elflein, where they don't really take Brett Jones seriously. It'd be like, all right, he's at least better than these dudes. Why not play him? So they're going to bring him back, my gut feeling, but they just don't take him seriously at all to play. But I'm looking at two guys, and another reason I'm talking about center is because a backup plan, an emergency contingency plan for Garrett Bradbury. And this is the last thing I'm going to say about this, because over the last couple of weeks when I talk about Garrett Bradbury, there's always those moments. When you do a podcast, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, you get in the groove, you start talking, and then afterwards I'm like, man, I forgot to say this, should have said that. Garrett Bradbury moving out in space, zone blocks, run blocking, pretty solid. Screen passes, pretty solid. And is there a case to be made that the guards next to him have been so shitty that what is he supposed to do? You may have an argument there. So if there's a misdirection by the defensive tackles, a little crisscross action, and miscommunication from the guard to center, okay, fine. I'm talking about the mano-a-mano plays. There is no trickery. There is no scheme here. There is no Houdini act. Snap of the ball, the defensive tackle in front of you, he's coming smack at you. What you going to do about it? Can you hold up? Consistently, he has shown that he can't in pass protection. Bro, you are a first-round pick. You got to step up. Year 3, the time is now. But, yes, back up. We need depth. But also, if I'm Rick Spielman and I'm Mike Zimmer, I'm not trying to sit here and say, okay, and you know what? Maybe he works out great. Maybe he goes off this year. That would be fantastic. But I'm not trying to sit here on the chance that, okay, things aren't getting any better. I'm not trying to sit here and say, okay, we're just going to let this train wreck continue, or we're also not trying to find an emergency replacement at the last second. So I'm looking at two guys, starting with Ben Garland, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers, 33 years old, 15 starts, so he does have experience. And coming from San Francisco, that's a tough-ass football team. We need that on this offensive line. I feel like 3/5 of our starting unit on the offensive line, Brian O'Neill, Wyatt Davis, Christian Darrisaw, those are 3 tough-ass dudes. We need that across the board at all 5 positions. Ben Garland, that's who I'm looking at. I'm also looking at Austin Ryder, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's 29 years old, heading into his 6th season, 33 career starts. I think either Garland or Ryder, that would be a nice piece to add for the depth of the offensive line. We got to go really, really hard for the backups on the offensive line, just as much as we have so far for the starting unit heading into 21. The next position group I'm looking at is defensive end, even though I think we're fine. You have Danielle Hunter, assuming he comes back healthy. You have Stephen Weatherly. You signed him this offseason. You have DJ Wonnum. You drafted him last year out of South Carolina, which, as an aside, you remember last year, Andre Patterson was super excited. Oh, DJ Wonnum, can't wait to get my hands on him. And I'm just going off of the quotes of Mike Zimmer. We need all the edge rushers we can get. I like DJ Wonnum. I had a lot of question marks about this guy, but he proved me wrong last year. I think he had a nice rookie season for the amount of time that he got on the field. But, I can't wait to get my hands on DJ Wonnum. Can't wait. And if this dude is really, you drafted Patrick Jones II, defensive end out of Pitt. You also drafted Janarius Robinson with that Bills pick out of Florida State. If DJ Wonnum is suddenly just getting pushed down the depth chart, I just really think, it's really just unfair how it's almost like you have 1 year to prove your worth in the league, and then we're super excited now when you get drafted, and then the next season, you know what, he's like, not that big of a deal. But anyway, going back to potential free agents, I'm really looking at just one guy for the Vikings to potentially sign, and I'm looking at Trent Murphy, formerly of the Buffalo Bills. Tough football player, would be a nice rotational piece to add on to the defensive ends you already have. And Vikings fans, you may not want to remember this, but if you remember 2018 Vikings versus Bills at US Bank Stadium, I walked into that game thinking, oh, we're gonna destroy the Bills, no questions asked. Next. I actually was in a Survivor League. I had 3 picks, and I put them all on the Vikings that week. What happened? We found a way to get blown the fuck out of our own building. Trent Murphy made a big impact play in that game. He had a forced fumble on Kirk Cousins that got recovered by the Bills. So that's who I'm looking at. If you're going to add anybody in free agency, it's going to be super cheap. You need a defensive end. I think we're fine. But I really like the idea of Trent Murphy wearing a purple jersey. And the last position group that I'm looking at is wide receiver, which just like defensive end, I feel like we're set at the receiver group as it stands right now. But if you're going to sign someone in free agency, if nothing else for the story, Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald, I'm sure, would teach Justin Jefferson a shit ton of stuff on top of whatever else he already has learned or will continue to learn from Adam Thielen. But Larry Fitzgerald, to me, reminds me of, even though they're from 2 different sports, Tim Duncan. Not flashy, not going to knock your socks off, but my God, may not even end up on SportsCenter top 10. But my God, do they do all the fundamentals super, super sharp. Tim Duncan, the big fundamental. And what is he? Larry Fitzgerald, was he like 100 years old in football years? And he can still make plays. Those are my suggestions. Austin Ryder, Ben Garland, Trent Murphy, and Larry Fitzgerald. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree or disagree? Or do you have additional suggestions? Let me know your thoughts. Next podcast is Wednesday. We'll see you then.